I've been wanting to do this video for a while, but I haven't been exactly sure how to go about it or what to say, but I just wanted to kind of give people a recap of what I've been through the past year with my Crohn's. Not for any sort of, oh, poor girl, not that thing, but more of an opportunity to share with you guys that no matter what you're going through, that there's generally a light at the end of the tunnel, and that everybody needs to be thankful for their health. It's taken me a long time to be thankful for my health and my body, and after everything I've been through this past year, it's a lot easier to be happy with my body and accept the fact that thick, thin, lean, muscular, that I need to be happy with where I am, because not everybody gets their health and it can be taken from you at any point. So for those of you who don't know me and don't know my disease and my history with it, I have Crohn's disease. It's a inflammatory bowel disease. I was diagnosed when I was 9 years old. When I was 9, I started going to the bathroom and losing a lot of blood, and then it pretty quickly progressed from there to where I was throwing up everything I was eating. I was losing a severe amount of weight. I went from 100 pounds to 75 pounds. I lost 25 pounds in about the course of a month. I ended up being hospitalized for malnutrition, and that was just kind of the start of my life changing. For those of you who aren't familiar with IBDs or Crohn's disease, it's an autoimmune disease. It's where your body attacks the lining of your intestines and fights you. So a lot of the medications you're on are anti-inflammatories, and they're also immune suppressants. So oftentimes we get put on steroids like prednisone, which is fun in itself. Everybody's disease is a little bit different, but for the most part, symptoms include severe abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, frequent bathroom trips, diarrhea, blood in the stool. Some people end up with skin rashes and different things like that, severe fatigue, and several other things. And by several trips to the bathroom, I don't mean, oh, I kind of feel flu-y. I mean, like, I've had several accidents as an adult. I've had days where I've gone to the bathroom 20 plus times a day and not slept more than 2 hours in the night because I have to keep getting up and going to the bathroom. So it's definitely not a fun disease. I was diagnosed when I was 9. I dealt with that for several years until I found a medication called Remicade that worked pretty well for a while, and it finally stopped working when I was about 15, 16, and I had another big flare. It sent me to the hospital with abdominal pain, blood loss, vomiting, all of that, and we got me on a new medication called Humira. I was on that for about a year and a half when my insurance ended, and I was feeling symptom free, so I got off of it. And I spent a little over 5 years in complete remission. No symptoms, no signs of the disease, nothing. I felt fine until July of 2015. I started noticing a little bit of blood loss when I went to the bathroom, and started noticing that I was getting a little more nauseous when I ate and just wasn't quite feeling right. I went into the doctor, and my inflammation levels were already incredibly high, and I figured, you know, we can just hop back on Humira, which was the last drug that worked well for me. We can maybe get me on a little bit of steroids, and hopefully we can get this under control quickly. That wasn't the case. I went in in July, and by October, I had progressed to the point of hospitalization. I was going to the bathroom 20-ish times a day. I was losing severe amounts of blood. I was vomiting every now and again, and I was suffering from excruciating abdominal pain. I would just lay in bed for hours and just cry because it would hurt so bad, until I finally got to the point that I couldn't take it anymore, and I went to the ER. And this was about the first week in October. I went to the ER, and they gave me 2 shots of morphine that did nothing, and ended up giving me Dilaudid on top of that, and it completely knocked me out, and I was unconscious for the CT scan they did and everything they did in the ER. They moved me up to a hospital room, and I finally started to come to a little bit, but they kept me so heavily sedated on pain meds that for the first 24 hours I was in the hospital, I don't really remember much. I don't really remember talking to people, but my inflammation in my colon was so bad that they couldn't do a colonoscopy. They couldn't do a scope to see kind of what was going on inside, because normally, for example, your colon has thinner walls and a wider opening. Mine was completely swollen to the point that nothing was passing through. I think I have some photos from a colonoscopy in December, but I ended up being in the hospital for 6 days. They checked me for C. diff and every other intestinal issue they could possibly find, and all it was Crohn's flare. There was no perforations, fissures, anything. It was just a very, very severe flare, and my doctor wasn't quite sure how we were going to get it under control, but we just kept upping my steroid dose, and he prescribed me oxycodone for pain. And against everybody's orders, I already had a trip for Thailand planned, and I got out of the hospital, and less than 48 hours after that I hopped on a plane and went to Thailand. I'm sure in all my pictures I looked like I had the best time in the world, and I did. It was an amazing experience, but I was on antispasmodic medication and opiate painkillers 24/7 the entire time I was there. There was even a time where we left our hotel and got all the way downtown into Bangkok, and I realized I forgot my pain meds, and we had to hop in a cab and go all the way back, because I was still at the point where if I was off of pain meds, I was in excruciating pain and couldn't stand up, couldn't function. On top of that, I'm still rushing to a bathroom constantly. My best friend was with me, and luckily she was a really good sport, because there were several times we had to run and find somebody's bathroom and ask for help, but luckily made it through the trip with no accidents, no serious issues. But the last 3 days of my trip, I started to get really sick, and to the point where no pain meds were helping, no Tums, no anything I had on me was helping. And by the time I got back in the US, I was miserable. I was basically in bed constantly. The only time I was getting out of bed was to feed my dog, take him potty, and go back to sleep. This lasted for about 2 weeks after I got home, and finally I just couldn't take it anymore, and I went to the ER, and we checked me for C. diff again, and I had contracted C. diff from the first time that I was hospitalized. C. diff is, to my understanding, it's a bacterial infection of your intestines. It essentially gives you Crohn's symptoms, so it gives you severe nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, increased bathroom trips. It was miserable, and to have that on top of a Crohn's flare was really, really difficult. I had already started losing a significant amount of weight, but it was getting to the point where I didn't want to eat. I couldn't eat. I think I had lost about 15 pounds at that point, and I'm not very big. I'm I sit at about 125, 130 pounds. I was hospitalized this time around for almost 2 weeks. We ended up doing another CT scan just to make sure nothing was perforated. It still seemed like I was really swollen and inflamed, and so we didn't want to risk doing a colonoscopy. So we upped my steroids more. At this point, we had tested the Humira and it wasn't working at all. We tried another drug. We tried Cimzia. That didn't work at all. With the C. diff, we tried oral antibiotics and that wasn't cutting it. So we tried intravenous antibiotics and that still wasn't helping. The steroids still weren't helping. The only thing that was keeping me functioning were pain meds, and not just morphine or oxycodone. We had me on Dilaudid, a lot of it. Finally, I was able to kind of wean off the Dilaudid, wean off of the IV pain meds, and just back on oral pain meds, and they were able to send me home. I went home, but really with no improvement except the fact that I was just taking oral pain meds instead. I continued kind of the same process of just laying in bed 24/7, getting up to feed my dog and go back to bed. I probably wasn't eating more than 600 calories a day, if that, on a good day. I was seeing my doctor every other week, and it got to the point where he wanted to put me on a feeding tube because I just wasn't keeping weight on. I was turning gray. None of the antibiotics were helping with the C. diff. He ended up giving me the formula that you put in a feeding tube, like an elemental diet, and the fact that I was able to stomach it and just drink it without throwing up was the only thing that kept me off of a feeding tube. I think I got down to 110 pounds. I wasn't staying hydrated, so every time I went into the doctors, they kept me and did a saline drip. Every time I went in, they did my blood work and nothing was improving. So finally we got to the point where antibiotics weren't working, steroids weren't working, opiates were just helping me get by day to day. And my doctor finally met with me and looked at me and was like, "We're running out of options." And for somebody to hear that from their doctor isn't easy, because especially with my disease, your only option when you run out of options is surgery, which would remove my entire colon, and that would leave me with a ostomy bag, which, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's the little bag where they basically take out your entire colon, and that's where your poop comes out. So you have this big hole in your stomach that's attached to this little bag that you have to change every day. And with Crohn's, there's really no chance of undoing that and doing a J-pouch surgery, which is where you connect the two ends that were disconnected and taken out. It's really not successful in Crohn's patients. So it would be a lifetime thing. At this point, I started looking into medical cannabis because I didn't have any other options. Nothing was working. In the meantime, we were working on getting approved for a fecal matter transplant for the C. diff, which essentially is where they take exactly what it sounds like. They take somebody else's fecal matter that's gone through testing and everything like that, and they do a colonoscopy and basically deposit it all through your intestines in order to kind of reset your bacteria. I spent a lot of time in Colorado relying on their recreational marijuana. It helps more than anything I've ever been on. It helped me not have to take my nausea medication. It helped me so I didn't have to take my antispasmodic medications, and it helped me stay off of painkillers as much as I could. It also helped me have somewhat of an appetite. It allowed me to eat the little that I was able to eat, and helped me go from being doubled over in pain to being able to stand up and have a conversation with somebody. I just remember being so heartbroken because I knew that we were out of options at that point. Medical marijuana is not legal in my state, and we had burned through almost every single medication on the market and nothing was working. My hair was falling out, my skin was gray, I had lost a total of 25 pounds, and everybody had commented on how positive and upbeat and happy I had stayed through all of this, because you have to be. If you're not, if you do the whole poor me, this sucks, why me, you're gonna let your disease kill you. You're gonna let it take over your life. I've been through a lot in my life, and several years ago I made a big change and decided to be a very happy, very positive person, and I have been for a very long time. And this was a huge test to that. But I'll be honest, you don't have good days. I mean, when you are basically bedridden, when you can't make it the 20 feet to your bathroom without having an accident, you can't go out in public without fear of wondering where a bathroom is, without having to sprint off somewhere, without always having to have an emergency kit of clothes and baby wipes and things like that on you. It gets to the point where you don't want to leave your house anyways. Every time you eat, you're in miserable pain. You stop wanting to eat. You stop wanting to get out of bed. You stop wanting to talk to people. You get to the point where you lay in bed and you just kind of go, I don't want to live like this anymore. Like, my doctor tells me I'm out of options, and the medication that has worked in the past, you can't have access to where you live. And yeah, I mean, I just remember being in bed one day and my mom came over because I wasn't even able to like clean up after myself or take my dog on a walk. So I really relied on her and my boyfriend to kind of take care of me for a while. And I just remember laying in bed and being like, I don't want to live like this anymore. It's like, no, that's not like a I don't want to live anymore, but you get to the point where it just becomes so helpless that you don't know what to do. Your doctor doesn't know what to do. And it's horrible on you, but it's horrible to see the effects of what this disease does on your loved ones. I'm sure it's one of the hardest things that Tyson, my boyfriend, has ever had to go through. And for my mom, it was extra hard because she was the one that was there for me when I was 9, when I was getting blood transfusions, when I had to basically be cared for by her 24/7. Life gets hard, and it does. It gets really hard, and it absolutely does get to the point where you feel completely helpless. You are at the mercy of your body that doesn't want to work for you anymore. And coming from someone who's fit and active and loves being healthy, it's draining, and it just gets to the point where you're angry at the world. As positive of a person as I always try to be, it's not every day that you're like that. I tried to stay as positive as I could with my Instagram posts when I could post. I think I maybe posted once a week while I was sick like this. But of course I can't get on there and be like, I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to do it. I can't do this. I can't function like this. I can't see my family go through this. I can't see my loved ones go through this. It's like, you can't give up. This disease isn't going to kill you. I mean, there's many people out there who do have diseases that are going to kill you. I mean, Crohn's can kill you, but not like other diseases can. Like I said at the beginning of this, there's generally a light at the end of the tunnel. We finally found a medication that started working in conjunction with another medication called Imuran. I'm also on an injection called Stelara. After several weeks of being on that, we finally started to see improvements, and we started to see blood work come back better. We started seeing the amount of blood loss go down, the amount of bathroom trips go down, and I started to finally feel like I was getting my life back on track. I did start to wean off the painkillers that I had been on for almost 8 months, and I had to go through opiate withdrawals, and that was really hard. because it's like I'm dealing with enough. Instead of being able to have access to medical cannabis, I relied heavily on opiates, and you try and start tapering off of that, and if you go too fast, it's like you start puking, you start shaking. I started getting to where I almost felt like fainting, and I had to up them and then slowly taper down and keep tapering down at the slowest increments I possibly could until I finally felt like a human being again. About the time I got off of opiates, I was able to get off of steroids as well, about in April. And mind you, I got sick in July. So in April, I had started to kind of get back in the gym, and it was one day at the gym where I did a light full body workout, and it was 2 days in bed. I was still sleeping 12 to 16 hours a day. I was still napping every day. But and I won't lie, it was so frustrating. I left the gym probably a dozen times crying because I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I couldn't even walk on the treadmill without being in pain. I couldn't lift a bar by that point. And it just added to the mental side of this disease. You have to persevere through things like this, because like I said, if you don't, you basically will let your disease kill you. You'll let whatever problem that you're going through take over, and I'm not going to let my disease take over my life. I haven't in the past, and even though this was one hell of a tough 8 months, I didn't let it beat me. There were some days where it definitely knocked me down, but I'm here now. I'm completely off of opiates. I'm off of nausea medication. I'm off of antispasmodic medication. I'm back in the gym 5 days a week and not having to nap every single day. I'm finally out of the mental fog that opiates and steroids give you. My hormones are finally back on track. I lost my period for several months. My hair was falling out, my nails weren't growing, but I'm finally back on track. I'm taking my vitamins every day. I'm able to eat more than 600 calories. I'm able to go to the gym and actually do a full workout and not have to sleep for 2 days afterwards. I'm back up about 20 pounds. I lost about 19 pounds muscle, and that's going to take a long time to get back, but I think I've got back about 10. Of course, it's going to bounce back faster since it was already there previously, but my skin color is back. My face isn't swollen from steroids. I don't have these big bags under my eyes anymore. I feel like I have my life back again, and as much as I hope this disease doesn't rear its ugly head again, I know that I can take it on. The whole point of this video was to kind of give you guys an insight of what this disease can really be like and how it can affect an individual, how it affects family. So if you have loved ones with this, if you personally have this disease or ulcerative colitis, the other IBD, understand that it's completely unpredictable. You don't know if you're going to be okay in a month. You don't know if you're going to be okay in a year. And you never know how it's going to affect you. And you have to be stronger than it. You can't let it rule your life with any disease, with any hardship. It's like, I've been through a hell of a lot in my life, and there's points that I've let it kick my ass. And you just have to be stronger than it. It's like, life is hard, but you can be a lot tougher. I hope that people can see this and appreciate the life that they have, and to not take their health for granted. Next time you complain about that extra 5 pounds, or this doesn't look good, or this doesn't look good, or this or that, remember that there are people who have no control over their body and how their body is going to act. There's people who don't know what their tomorrow will look like. I mean, none of us do. We might not have tomorrow. Enjoy life, enjoy food, enjoy your health. Enjoy your health more than anything, because you might not always have it. It's something so many people take for granted. But I can tell you, I will never take my health for granted again. Things can come out of nowhere and completely sideline you. But just try and stay positive and know that in almost any situation, there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel somehow and in some way. You might not be how you used to be. Things might not be the same ever again, but you can make the most out of them. I'm not 100% like I was. I may never be. I still have to worry about what I eat, where a bathroom is. I still have days where I have to lay in bed because it hurts too bad to move. But I have more good days than bad, and I am going to take advantage of every single one of them. I hope that all of you can too, because our health is a gift and we may not always have it. So I know this was kind of long and a little emotional, but I've been wanting to share it for a while. I wanted to give you guys an inside look of what I have been through this past year and why it's so important for me that I can show you guys a comeback, and I can show you guys that no matter what life throws at you, you can still make it what you want. And I plan on kicking ass this fall and achieving my goals and not letting anything stop me. If my disease rears its ugly head again, I'll deal with it. But until then, I am going to live life to the fullest and make every moment count. And I hope you guys all do too.